Welcome to Brick by Brick. Join me, Loren, as I share my personal journey of building a thriving real estate and hard money lending business from the ground up. Along the way, we'll explore the strategies, challenges, and breakthroughs that come with growing wealth. Whether you're a seasoned investor or aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the world of private lending and real estate, this podcast is packed with actionable insights, real-world stories, and mindset tips to help you build your own path to success brick by brick. Welcome to another episode of Brick by Brick. Today, we have with us Caleb Christopher. Caleb is a very interesting individual. We're going to talk to him all about the world of creative financing, specifically around transaction coordination. And Caleb, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Always interested to talk to people that are looking for unique ways of structuring real estate deals. As a lot of the listeners know, I started my career out with a seller finance deal. I've been involved in some wraps, some other seller finance deals on both sides, and obviously run a lending business currently. But can you give us a little idea of kind of how you got started and what brought you into this world of creative financing?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You told me about how you started out with basically a seller finance deal that jumped you straight into outside the box thinking, and you latched onto it and realized what you could do to scale and leverage that. And so I've always enjoyed creative strategies. I didn't know to call it creative finance in real estate until I started doing sub twos and seller finances and learning that stuff. But I became an accidental landlord in 2019. And for those who don't know, that's when you can't sell your house and you have to refinance it and put a renter in just so you can go get the next house. And so we had to hurry up and rush and do that. And I really didn't understand what I was doing, but it paid the bills. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Wow. What a lot of life I had been wasting not making real estate part of my life estate planning and whatnot. So I caught the bug and started chasing after real estate at that point. Went for my first rental, and it grew from there. You know, you listen to Bigger Pockets because everybody finds that easiest and fastest. Thank you, SEO. And you got to execute. You can learn for so long, but you got to execute. And so I saved up, bought my first flip, started working on that, and learned creative finance along the way. And I joined a wholesaler team as a lead manager / creative closer. And I didn't have my personal passion yet. I just wanted to build a retirement plan for my family. After I lost a friend to COVID, I saw a wife and 2 kids left with nothing. And I helped with their mortgage payments for a little bit, but my family's not that well taken care of. And I'm like, I've got to do something to get them. I need money to come in whether or not I can work or whether or not I'm here. So that's the dad passion there. And then I discovered creative finance passion when I did my first couple of deals. Everybody's taught how to get into deals, particularly wholesalers. You know how to negotiate your way into a deal, but then I wasn't the end buyer. And then the wholesaler that I was working for brought in somebody I never knew, never met. And I'm like, wait a minute, my promises are attached to that contract. And I don't know that guy. And now that's when the moral, ethical conundrum steps in. And I'm like, there's a lot of room for creative finance to be done unethically. People can really be dirtbags, and there's not much you can do about it when you lose control. And so I set myself on a mission to go learn the ins and outs and to make creative finance safe, legal, and ethical. And that's when I started my company, Creative TC.
That's awesome. I think you hit exactly where I was kind of wanting to go is when people talk about creative financing, there's kind of the two groups. There's the group that are absolutely in love with it. And then there's the group that kind of shy away from it because it feels kind of greasy, maybe like, oh, it's just people that don't have any money trying to get into real estate. So I guess from your perspective, kind of talk me through what your thoughts are on that mentality of that the creative financing term has a negative connotation to it.
Absolutely. And it's everybody can recognize that there's a lot of room to abuse people who don't understand things. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, or that it's ethical. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. And to your point, it does look like when you get into it, it looks like there's a bunch of broke people trying to find ways to do deals. And I've said it a million times, but I've not said it to you yet. So I'll say it again. It's cool to do deals with $0 out of pocket. It is not cool to do deals with $0 in your pocket. That's not safe. That's not ethical. If it's your own credit and your own loan and funds and all this stuff on the line, sure. But banks pretty well check for that in advance. They want you to have 6 months of reserves. Seller finance doesn't check for reserves. You should not be getting into a deal where you have no cash reserves. That's unethical. and foolish.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the Loren of 3 4 years ago might have argued a little bit differently, right? In a different spot in our life, and as you mature in your business repertoire, then things change. But there's a mentality of how do I do this ethically, but knowing that I have to get going. And so I think that there's a push pull there around like I can learn all I want, but how do I get the money or how do I move this thing forward? Or I can learn all I want and never move it forward because I have these thresholds of I have $0, right? And I think that's where you are in talking about wholesaling, kind of step in is there are ways to get into the game without taking those ethical risks and still make money that gets you into the game further.
That's right. Yep. It's a progressive thing in any business there is. I mean, you can get some fast forwards. In fact, I'm working on a capital raise and I'm bringing in consultants. And somebody said, consultants make it look like your business doesn't have what it needs. And I'm like, it doesn't. That's why I have consultants. I have staff members, but a consultant has been there and done that for years. That's a fast forward. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
know Mr. Beast, but that was one of his things is like consultants are the biggest hack to building a business. I mean, my goodness. Anyway, so that's what I've been working on all morning before our call here is working through that explanation so I can explain to people the value of a consultant who can come in and actually do something. And as I was talking about that, practicing in the mirror, I realized that's what my first company is. All we are is consultants because we've been there and we've done that with creative finance deals. So that Loren, if you were doing your first, second, even 10th deal as a sub two, there's a lot of questions you should be asking. And a lot of people are not asking those questions. And I'm here to say, yep, we've done that. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? How does the mortgage portal work? Oh, you don't have that written in the contract? Well, I've got a library of clauses that are going to help you get this done the right way to declare your intent so it's legal and enforceable and safe. And you have a lot of decisions to make, but I want you to make informed decisions. And that's my whole purpose here. And that's what a consultant is. And that's what you introed me as a TC, a transaction coordinator. I just want to point out coordination obviously is included in what we do, but I intentionally call myself a consultant. So we're transaction consultants because every deal that somebody brings to us is like a mini mentorship. And our goal is to help you do the next deal better than the last one every single time.
Love that. I love that whole mentality about consultants and shortening that learning curve. When I got started, the only reason I was able to do the seller finance deal first is because I had $7,000 in my bank account at that point in time. And I took a tenth of that and paid for a creative financing course that came with documents to how to do seller financing, exactly explaining what to do. And I would have never had the courage to do that if I hadn't spent that bit of money. And so there are lots of different ways to scale your business, and knowledge, jumping ahead in knowledge is probably the biggest one. And so there's a lot of people that poo-poo, consultants and mentorships and anything that basically takes their money because they're like, well, what if I don't get a return? Well, you're only not going to get a return if you don't take action, right?
And what if they're
Almost
a
every one of
guru?
those people. Yeah. What if they're a guru? If
So
they're a
what?
guru and you take something, yeah, so what? As long as you're taking something from them and using it to benefit yourself, like it doesn't matter if they're sitting on top of the mountain with a Sarab on, they are giving you value that you can then take to generate wealth, right?
That's right. Execution is on you. So even if you're you can learn from a bad partnership. Yeah, that dude betrayed me. Okay, that's a college course. Maybe free, maybe paid, whatever. But that's a college course in what to look for in the next person. You can take something of value even from something that takes value from you.
Yeah. Well, some of the most expensive courses I took were when I lost money because I didn't pay for someone's help, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So let's go back a little bit. So you talk about, okay, I became this accidental landlord, right? Where I'm managing a house that I own and refinanced. How do you make that jump from accidental landlord to being this transaction consultant? How long does that take, and what is the kind of tipping point that says, this is the business, this is how I help?
I wish I knew what I know now, but doesn't everybody? I had a full-time job at the time in IT and cybersecurity consulting, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. But at one point, the boss told me that their contracts had dried up and we're probably going to shut the business down. Small company. Okay, so I doubled down learning real estate. I bought my flip property, planned to work in that and flip it and use the capital to just keep rolling and bouncing bigger and bigger, or maybe step down into construction and working the projects with some guys. And I had prior construction and rehab experience as a job. So that was my plan at the time. A lot of life circumstances happened. So then I ended up under budgeted for rehab because I was going to be doing the work, but then the job continued. I don't know, like a year and a half worth of a year and a half worth of a flip because I couldn't afford to get it finished. And when you're already in on a flip, you can't borrow more money very easily. And I wish I knew about creative strategies like a novation where somebody else steps in and does the rehab. I'm all entrapped in that. And then the job actually does get to the point where it's going to go away. And I had to jump ship and do something. And so I had already started Creative TC to help with these transactions. And it was just, all right, here we go full time. I had somewhere to go in my own company, and I went full time, full bore on that.
Got it. So it was there was a bit of a plan to move into it. It wasn't
I
just
did
like
have a little bit of a
I
plan.
fell into it or I stumbled upon this need, based on stuff I was already doing.
And I see people who are like, how soon can I quit my full time job using real estate? And I'm like, I wouldn't if you don't have to. Like, leverage your W 2 income. Anybody listening, leverage your W 2 income while you can. Refinance your current home, pull the cash out for that, go buy another house, sell this one. That's kind of tough when you got a wife and kids for a guy that's established in a home, but it would be worth more in the grand scheme of things of your life if you could keep this, turn it into a rental, buy the next house with W 2 income while expanding your portfolio, invest in, because you can get a loan that you can't get otherwise when you're the owner occupant. Leverage that before you throw it away.
Yeah. It's hard to tell somebody, hey, don't focus on now, but focus on the long term, right? I think that the people that do really well are the people that have that long-term vision. But everybody wants to, how can I buy 12 rentals right now and live off the cash flow? And I've said it before, and I'll say it a million times that cash flow is bullshit. Living off cash flow is bullshit. Um, like you have to use cash flow to make sure the property stays afloat, and then you will get money off the appreciation. That's where that's where the value is in rental properties. But if you think you're going to buy 12 rental properties and live off that, you're one HVAC and one roof away from being, on the street.
That's right. Unless you've owned them for 10 years and the cash flow from them has amplified as equity grows. So you've got that, you can always refinance for an emergency, but you can actually use the cash flow. And, as rents go up, your payment stays the same. That's what I'm telling you guys. Go get another regular loan and lock in a 30-year rate, because even if you rent it out later and it just covers its own costs, you don't have to do anything except let it grow over time. Rent will grow while your payment stays the same. Huge
Yeah,
value.
100% sure. That is the one thing that I wish I understood when I first got started, is that you can't, get cash flow from rentals and have the lifestyle or life that you want. You have to find other avenues.
That's
You
right.
know, that led me to flipping, and then because I started with rentals, and then that flipping led me to wholesaling, and then I decided to hate wholesaling, and it all transitioned to what I wanted to do, which was be a lender, right?
Nice.
You build these skills along the way, and you build knowledge that you can use to stair step and brick by brick build the foundation for your dream.
That's right. One piece at a time.
Yeah. So you left your company, which I was also in digital, by the way, before I left my company a year ago. But you left your company and you started your TC, transaction consulting company, and everything's just rainbows and unicorns from then on
It was
forward.
perfect. And here I am today, 3.5 years later, and I haven't had a single challenge at all. My goodness. No.
So the only entrepreneur ever.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of challenges. You've got 4 kids. I've got 4 kids. I didn't at the time. I started with, I think, 2 or 3 when at that time. I'll check birth dates later. Sorry. Typical. Shoot, man. The first 18 months, I was learning how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a business owner, and I was the worker. I was working in the business, not on the business. And it's still hard to make that full step out, but I was working 14 to 18-hour days because I had to do sales and operations. And I'll tell you, I am an expert at creative finance, and I was reading and reading and studying and looking up court cases and all this other stuff. I like learning, so it didn't feel like work, but it was a lot of time spent. And I went on, there was a little husband and father point of reckoning for me when the company was, I don't know, 6 months old, and I left for a business trip. And my wife calls me to let me know my kid asked where I was on day 2. I had been gone for almost 48 hours when she calls and said, "Hey, your son just asked where you were." And it dawned on me that I'd locked myself in my basement working so long, so often, that he didn't even realize I was gone from the house. Shame on me as a husband and father. And that, that was a tough point of recognition. And so the entrepreneur journey requires a lot of you, but that was a reminder to plan, put family on the calendar. Because if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist for me. And that's a really tough thing to get across to somebody who's not a calendar person, my wife. And so we have to learn to work through those things. And I just tend to laser focus on one thing and I don't see stuff beside me. And shame on me for not doing that. So that was my point of reckoning for that. And I've done a great job since then, dedicated time. But other challenges, dude, finances are up and down month to month. I chose a business that's got a price ceiling for what we can charge. I can deliver $10,000 worth of value, but who's going to pay $10,000 for a transaction consultant on a single family home? It's not going to happen. And so there's a price ceiling to what we do, no matter how good we are. And so that is difficult to scale. And because of the level of knowledge, we have to learn this much stuff to serve one deal that only requires this much knowledge. Another deal requires this much knowledge. So I have to teach these people so much stuff. I have geniuses working for me. That's really hard to recruit and retain if you can't pay them the moon.
Right.
So it's a very difficult business model to maintain and scale. And so at one point, I was scaling up for anticipated volume, and the market flooded with other TCs because of a new training program that came out. Well, there went 6 months of training, and the market, I went from blue ocean to red ocean, which I'll explain that. Blue ocean is an empty ocean. There's no blood in the water, is the concept. Wide open seas, plenty of fish in the sea if you're the shark hunting. A red ocean is there's blood in the water. And when there's blood in the water, sharks come from everywhere. And it's a feeding frenzy for customers and business and whatnot. And so it went from blue ocean to red ocean for me real quick. And so I scaled a team that I then couldn't keep busy. And I had to deal with layoffs. And that was so painful, embarrassing. I don't even have words to describe everything, but I looked every one of those people in the eyes and said, I failed you as a business owner. I'm sorry. I didn't see this coming. I'm not sure that I could have seen all of this coming, but there's no one else to blame but me. And the best I can do is I took out basically a business payday loan at 37% interest to tide operation, finances over through a slower season and laid people off. And I gave them 2 weeks pay from a loan. And I said, I'm sorry.
Mm.
A letter of recommendation and 2 weeks pay is all I can do for you. And I borrowed the money to do that. I wish I could do more. My goodness, man. That is not a fun time.
No. Wow. Yeah. I can only imagine the emotions going through there and then just the toll that would take on you and your family and your business. So walk me through like, okay, you get through the layovers, which obviously was the right thing to do for your business based on what you've said. What's your next step from there? And how do you keep that from percolating into other aspects of your life?
It's kind of tough to keep it from doing that. Although, just like we talked about, you can learn from a guru, like a bad person or bad experience. You can still pull positive lessons out. And I knew that was one of those things. I had the option to quit, do a bankruptcy, and just say, sorry, everybody, it's over, and go get a job. I had that opportunity. That was always an option. I didn't choose to do that. I wanted to push through and succeed because one of the things I committed to when I started the company, there was a sign I put up on if you look at my old YouTube videos, you'll see June 2021 or something like that. I can't remember the year now. I think it's 21. But that was the month I committed to quit my job. And when I did that, I was on a live Zoom with like 800 people on a Pace Morby Zoom, if you know him. And I said, Pace,
Mm-hmm.
I've got the bug. I'm going to do this one way or another. I'm either going to succeed or I'm going to crash and burn. And I'm not stopping until one of those two things happens. And so I was like, man, should I look at a bankruptcy? And I chose not to. We borrowed the money and we pushed through. And the way to protect the team sometimes means that some people have to go. But the best way I can serve each individual is to serve the company. And I realized that people are relying on me to get the business to a stable point because that's how they put food on the table. That's how they care for their families. And so I'm a husband and father of one family, but a provider to a dozen families. And that's a pretty heavy weight. And I'm not okay filing bankruptcy. I got to double down and get stuff done. And so we worked through it. And that was late 23, early 24. And so 24, the whole year felt like I was just treading water, just barely surviving. But if I look at the financials, I recovered from a pretty fat business loan, paid it all back, and still paid my own bills and paid 8, 9, 10 other families' wages. That's pretty stinking good. I'm pretty happy with that. It didn't feel good at the time. Like what's the Bible talks about the borrower's servant to the lender. And that's how I felt like every day I'm working for somebody else. I'm just working to pay back a bill. The money's already been spent. This is terrible. I still have my passion for what we do. I still enjoy helping people, but boy, it didn't feel like I was working to build something for me at that point. And that was a whole year of my life recovering from, I'd say we estimated at $140,000 mistake because we hired early in
Mm.
advance. One of the lessons is you don't hire ahead of volume. You just don't. You need to set your thresholds and figure out what your revenue per employee is and don't go outside that number. You familiar with Brandon Dawson?
Mm-hmm.
Love his content. He just speaks my language. I love almost everything that comes out of his mouth when I see it on Instagram. I can't wait to go to one of his seminars and learn from him directly. But even watching the free stuff, they publish quite a bit of really helpful free stuff and their revenue per employee targets. Now, mine's different from what he talks about in HVAC businesses and whatnot, but still, that's a foundational principle. If I had known that in 2023, I never would have wasted $140,000 on that mistake.
Do you think that if you had known that in 2023 before going through all that pain, that it would have sunk in enough that you would have heeded it?
At least somewhat. It wouldn't have hurt as bad. I might not have taken it direct, but the principles are there. They're the same thing. And so, yeah, I would have reduced the damage if nothing else.
I can believe that. So I'm a firm believer that you ingest or you digest the information as you become ready for it. And so there are things that like I heard for the first time 2, 3 years ago that didn't mean anything. And now looking back, I'm like, that is great advice. I wish I would have known how to apply it to my situation at the time, but maybe I'm just dense. But I had to take the bumps to get those emotional scars in order for that lesson to sink.
And I'll tell you one other thing, very valuable lesson for me. And I would encourage other people to take this one in. Don't let this one pass you by. If you ever have to deal with partners, look for somebody who's been through the fire, been through the muck, and come through it. The person who didn't file bankruptcy, the person who ran into hard times and fought through it and got to the other side, or fought so hard to get through. And I don't know. I'm not sure if you want to hitch your boat to another boat that already sank in the past. When evaluating partnerships, be careful.
Yeah. I, I agree. I know a guy, and I'm not condoning this or saying this is what you should do, but I know a guy that will not go into business with you if you've had more than one divorce. Because his theory is that it shows a sign of lack of being able to work together and create a good partnership. And so
Absolutely.
he thinks this is a red flag and won't work with anybody that's had more than one divorce.
I would double down on that. I've said the same thing about senior management at my company, right? You've shown commitment issues in general. Like from the outside with no context, it shows it's a sign of poor judgment or lack of committedness. I agree 100%. When you're trying to find out who you want to hitch your wagon to and actually be partners with, and I would say senior management at your company is kind of a partnership level sort of thing. Like, do I want that person speaking to my people? So, yeah, I agree.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so now we've gotten through. Was there a specific turning point in 2024? You said you were just kind of grinding through, right? Where you could visibly like, I see the light of day. I'm making progress, or was it
June,
just
the month of
heads
June.
down? June. Okay, tell me about June in 2024. What happened, and also tell me about May of 2024 prior to June.
Yeah. So this is where I stop and give credit to some key people, namely a man named Marcelo. He joined me the year before. He's been with me. He's the most loyal person I've ever met. And he has worked with me and he did sales. He still does sales. But I am not. I have passion, but not for phone calls with people. It drops off. Besides, I'm not that great of a salesperson because I just give away the answers for free. I just give stuff away. And he's like, that was a paid consult you should have been on. And so I need that coaching from him as well. But he has been the single most important person at the company at driving revenue to a point where we can not only sustain, but grow. So number one key factor was that man. And so he rode through the storm with me. In fact, everybody basically took pay cuts for a little bit to make things work. We had a negative bank balance for a moment, and he rode through the storm with me. I've got a couple other ride or die people here as well, but he's the one that got us out of the ditch, not single-handedly, but pretty dang close to it. Oh, that was February when we were like, uh-oh, we were burning through capital pretty quick. March was when we were like, oh, it's not coming back. So we got a loan in March or April, and that was 37% interest on a 6-month term with automatic ACH every week. So when you need money bad, you're a high risk, and they're going to get as much back as they can. So, I've been there, I've done that. I wouldn't do it again if I didn't have to. But now I've got relationships like a private money lender. And so I found somebody who does to give me seasonal capital for the slow season. Hopefully, I don't even touch it and I just pay interest to have it in my bank account. But at 15% interest to a PML, much better circumstance
Much
for me.
better.
And so we did the layoffs in March, April. May looked a little better, but we're still like just clawing to get back money. But now our bills are way less, so life is sustainable. And then June, we had the highest month of sales we've ever had at like just under $100,000 in sales for the company. We're an $800,000 company annually, by the way. I didn't give that context before. So that's 1 month. Just huge. Yeah. Pretty fantastic.
Was that because of the seasonality of the
Yes.
business, or was there some? Okay, so there wasn't something that switched in the business, that some strategy that changed that all of a sudden drove a bunch of sale. That was just there's a big chunk of seasonality that comes in June.
Yes, but we also did a bunch of active outreach to bring business in. So that was the single largest month we've ever had.
I guess maybe just walk me through real quick the business model. Like who are your customers? How are you finding them? You don't need to give me your rates, but like what is some of those things so that the entrepreneurs in our audience can kind of get an idea of what the business looks like.
Yeah, and I'm pretty open book, so any question you're welcome to ask, and I'll give it away, or I'll tell you I'm going to hold that one back. To that end, I have a newsletter that goes out that actually shows my company and real estate financials. Now, I don't have as big of a portfolio as you, but I got tired of all the guru talk and all the people showing fancy cars and stuff, but never showing a negative month. And I know they've had negative months, and I know they're faking a lot of stuff, but they don't share it. I'm tired of that, so I'm just putting out the honest stuff. If you look me up, you can find that newsletter. The business model at Creative TC is we come alongside somebody who's already in a creative finance transaction. So let's say, Loren, you have a verbal agreement with a seller for seller finance or a sub two, which is where, in case people don't know this, sub two is when the loan stays in place, basically, and the buyer takes over payments and gets the property. So those are pretty complex transactions. So if you got a verbal from somebody, we would be there to help you with the contract. I have a drive-through contract service. We have a creative finance ready contract that works in all 50 states. We rock and roll with that. You give me the information, we prep it for you, you review it. Ideally, you take it to an attorney because I'm not an attorney, and we shoot that off on our DocuSign to help you get it closed. And we help with follow-ups and things like that because we want to help you get into that contract and to plan for it the right way. So sometimes somebody comes to us with this and we're like, have you thought of this, this, and this? Let's have a conversation. Tell me the story behind the deal. By the way, creative finance, you guys, if you've got a creative finance deal, you've got a story. Creative finance doesn't just happen because somebody wants to sell their house. There's a story behind every deal, or it's probably not a deal. So that's what I've taught my people to dig into. And we find good things and bad things. And sometimes, Loren, you would be like, you know what? Maybe this isn't a deal yet. So we help people avoid bad deals, or plenty of the time. So that's the stage one. You can engage with us, or you can bring us a contract and we will step into the deal as the TC, the coordinator, but we're consulting with you and helping make sure that the seller understands the transaction. I'm not into it. If you're wanting to bring somebody into a sub two transaction, not give them the sub two disclosures that explain their credit's still on the line, that if I don't make payments, it could result in a foreclosure for you. We're not tricking people into transactions, and we're not helping people trick people into transactions. So we'll hold your hand, we'll help you. We're there for it. We can be on the phone, we can explain things, the life cycle of a transaction, but we're adding that knowledge so that everybody involved makes an informed decision. And that's why I'm telling you, there's a story behind every deal. They're trading money they want their price, then you get your terms. And you know what? Your low interest mortgage, this is my value proposition to a seller. Your low interest mortgage is an asset that I'm willing to pay for because I can't get that. I'm willing to pay you for your mortgage, but part of the deal is the mortgage stays in place, and here are the risks involved, and here is Caleb's credit score, and here is Caleb's credibility and the portfolios, and I own this business, and here's the reviews from me and my team. Here's character references. I'm willing to throw all of that out to show who's in the deal when I'm doing one. And so I bring all that passion and knowledge to your transaction to help you get it done safe, legal, and ethical.
I love it. Yeah, I think sub two is the one that I hear the most about of, just like shake my head like, why are you doing this deal? Because it doesn't look like it benefits the seller or the buyer, but people are just trying to make anything work to get that 3.2 mortgage or whatever it is. And they're creating a problem for themselves, and they're probably creating a bad situation, like a foreclosure situation possibly for the seller, which is, it just gives the whole industry a bad name, right?
Yep. And we talk on deal structure a lot. There's different ways to close a sub two, but if you're the wholesaler, if you're acting as a wholesaler, that means the middleman who's not actually the end buyer. That's okay. I'm not against that just on its face as a business model in creative finance transactions. But the ethical way to do it is to do a wraparound mortgage where you actually you double close, or you place a lien on the property that you wrap to your end buyer, which allows you the right to foreclose on your end buyer. So this is an A to B to C transaction. A to B is seller to wholesaler. Wholesalers, your ethical duty to that seller who you just made promises to is to stand in the middle and find a qualified buyer who's not going to default. And if they don't default, then no problem. But if they do default, you're standing in the middle to make a payment toward that mortgage to keep the seller's credit in good standing, to keep the seller out of foreclosure. And so you keep this loan in good standing. Meanwhile, your buyer, the person you gave the deal to, is in default, and you can foreclose on them. That is how you keep your word, honor your word, and do the deal the right way with the seller.
Yep, 100% agree. I ran into a similar situation on that. We did a wrap a year and a half ago, and this was actually a private money lender had given me financing for this property. We were going to do a flip, and then I basically just got overloaded with other projects and wanted to get it gone. I knew a guy that had a contact with somebody that they didn't have great credit. They had a lot of cash. And so we basically agreed that I will keep the note with private money lender. I talked to him. We increased his interest rate a touch. And then we passed that on to the seller. He paid an upfront fee. And basically all my dealings with it now are every month. I get $500. I send $500, and I will make some money in a year or so when it pays off. But it's helping both parties because the private money guy we were gonna have to get him out of that loan somehow, help me out, and then the purchaser, like, they fixed the whole house all up, and I think they even recently maybe got an offer for like a X what he paid for the property, because
Nice.
the property was gutted when I sold it to him, and he's fully updated it and done everything to him, but he's happy to live there and have a place to live, because he knows that, with his credit and some other stuff going on, that it's going to be tough for him to find a place to live, and I don't have to manage toilets or deal with the tenants or anything. So it's a great situation. Probably prefer to have the cash up front and be done with it, but sometimes you got to do different things in order to get yourself into a good long-term position of.
That's right. I'm still receiving payments from a couple of years ago, an assignment fee that I had. I got a great deal on a house, but the cash to close was too high. It's a sub two deal. The cash to close was too high for the buyer plus rehab costs. And I said, listen, I'm not going to reduce the price because you're still getting a good price. So I will finance some of my assignment fee, and you can pay me what's a monthly rate you can afford. And so he agreed to $200 a month, and I've been receiving that for a couple of years now because I took some of my assignment fee up front and some of it on the back end. And somebody's like, that's really creative. Yes, it's creative finance already. We just tacked a different flavor on. I do want to say something, though, to wholesalers. If you have wholesaled a sub two and the seller calls you and the other person is in default, call me, find me, call me. I will coach you through how to handle it. But your ethical duty is to make the payments to that seller's loan because you're the one that got them into it. Even if your buyer is the one who's at fault for not paying, that's fine. Because listen, John Smith, the borrower, can still make a payment to his own mortgage while Mr. Jefferson is in default and is the current owner. We want to preserve the seller's credit. The seller can still, while they keep their own loan in good standing, they can still pursue action against that defaulting buyer. And so if you honor your word or you care about your name, step in, make the payments for that seller and help them go after. Whatever payments you make can be a promissory note from the seller to you. I can talk through all of that for your specific situation, but I'm here to help people do safe, legal, and ethical deals. By the way, Loren, I have 15-minute free consults for anybody who has any questions about creative finance, because nobody was there to do that for me. I built what wasn't there for me when I started in creative finance.
Got it. Do you think that most wholesalers, when they're doing a seller or sub two, that they understand that long term kind of responsibility that they're putting themselves in? Do you think that if
Yeah.
they did, they would do them?
Yeah. If you made them commit long term to the ethical standard that is good and right, yeah, I think a lot of people would just dodge the creative finance deals.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Okay, so back to June of last year. I got through your story, right? I keep going back and forth here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. We got through. And
um,
so we recovered.
so June you recovered. So tell me kind of where your business is at now, a year and almost a year and well, probably a year and 2 months, 3 months later.
So we have grown and steadied up. And I've got people who've been with me. The company's 3.5 years old. I've got people who've been with me for 3 years and more than 2 years. And we've had a couple of people come and go. By the way, I hire out of South Africa for most of my staff members because remember how I told you I have to hire really smart people? You can't afford those people in the US. They have better job opportunities elsewhere. But a US job for a South African is a fantastic opportunity. They love our culture, like the team culture at the business. And we've got it's a great program. We teach them things that are interesting to them. We find the right people. We've got personality tests involved in evaluations. I literally have thousands of applications every month, and I have some automated tests and interviews that narrow it down to tens of people a month. And so we cherry pick the best applicants, but we spend money to have that pipeline ongoing. So we have 14 members right now. I've brought in a full-time accountant because I've got other things going on as well, and it's running pretty smoothly with a full-time manager in place. So I'm not even a manager of the company anymore. I own it. I answer questions, but I don't even really get technical escalations because I've taught them everything I possibly can, and they're flipping smart, man. So that's exciting for me as a business owner, and that has given me the freedom over the last 12 months to work on buying or building a title company. And long story short, I've been working on buying. I've evaluated 6 companies, made offers on 3. I have explored partnerships with 4 different people, 3 different people, got pretty far, got to the operating agreement before it shut down on a couple of them. It's just try and try and try and try again. But we are opening a title company. Actually, we just took our first file today in Colorado. So thank you. The ability pushing through that tough season and recovering financially gave us the stability to install somebody as manager, promote somebody as manager, and allowed me to work on building the next business. Like I said, I chose a model that has a cap, a ceiling. We can't charge more than X dollars for what we do. And so my job as the business owner and visionary is to go build something else to give my people lateral and vertical career mobility. Because when you max out at the first company, you're maxed out. I don't have anywhere further for you to go. And people like having a career path. So my job is to go build that career path for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that too many people that aren't in business, they think that the business owner is just there to rip as much money out of the business as possible, which, I mean, to be fair, we are here to make money. But at the end of the day, like, we can't do what we do without the people that are employed by us. And we have to make sure we take care of them. We are responsible for their livelihoods, right? The people that I employ do not have Christmases without the paychecks that I provide. They do not have birthdays. They do not have cars. Like, it's a big responsibility, and making sure you find the right people and take really good care of them is critical to somebody that's got some integrity.
That's right. And so we have now, I'm almost breaking that rule. Remember that rule about hiring before volume? So we brought the accountant in knowing that I was going to expand the duties. So I can afford the accountant's salary full time on staff,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also going to get better value out of that when I add the title company duties to that person. Same thing for a marketing person. I started with an intern. He's literally half my age, like to the month, I think. He's in college for business marketing. And so he actually, this is a great opportunity for him because it started as an internship because he gets to apply what he's learning while he's learning it, but also learn from the trenches. So when he comes out of a 2 or 3 year program, he's going to be 3 or 4 years ahead of anybody else in his program because he's actively putting the stuff to work. And I'm like, how can we leverage your classmates? Can we just run a little $100 award for somebody who creates the best graphic about this? And then runner-up prizes and just generate content. Like, how do you work through other people? So I'm trying to train him to work through other people.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think you've hit on a good thing of finding the right people, and also that the training piece and bringing people in. I think it gets challenging when you're talking about hiring people and trying to make sure that they have the same mindset as you. Also, constantly worrying that, hey, the mindset I have is I'm going to go start my own thing, right? That's how we get into this as entrepreneurs. And so, how do you, maybe not, there's not even select for it, but like, how do you balance hiring people that are entrepreneurial that will work with you and really help you grow your business without hiring people that are going to come in, steal your stuff and move on to their own thing? Or do you just, hey, they're going to grow themselves out, and that's okay?
It's a little bit of two things. Recognizing that some people are going to age out. That's not they're going to learn out, I guess, grow and graduate. And especially if I don't have a career path that takes them any further, I'm teaching them really important stuff. So understanding that some people are going to go, prefacing their employment with a conversation. Hey, you're going to learn a lot of great stuff here. I'm asking for a commitment from you. If you want to, I'm committed to serving you, but if you want to leave, give me a pretty big heads up. But I'm asking for at least 6 months of your time when we start this. I'm not looking to hire somebody to work 90 days. I'm not looking to fill a little gap in your resume where you're between jobs. This becomes the thing that you do. This is who you are now, for a while at least. I expect to be a good season in your life because I'm going to give back to you and invest in you and try to protect and serve you as the business owner. Setting that expectation
You're
up front
giving
helps a lot.
Well, you're giving them a lot of information too. I mean, it's not like you're just click this button and drag this over here. Like, the amount of information that you're providing on creative financing, that takes a lot of training and effort on your part to get them up to speed. And so that's got to be massive loss when somebody decides to leave.
Yep, we are creating experts. I'm building experts independently. A lot of these people can go serve and do all the same stuff. Sales and like the back end and sales and stuff is tough, but you join somebody else's team as the transaction consultant for a wholesale team, you've got yourself a pretty good career. So that is a concern. So prefacing things and finding people with shared values generally helps a lot, but also understanding who you're hiring. I hire outside the US for a reason. It's harder to figure a way to do business. I'm not trying to trap people. I am giving people a great opportunity, but a lot of US people are particularly in wholesaling. Everybody's an entrepreneur or a wantrepreneur, and as soon as they learn what they need, they're gone. I've seen it happen a lot of times, and so I just generally refuse to hire US personnel unless I've got that one-on-one connection with them and they want to be a part of what I'm building or they want to build together. And by the way, entrepreneurs, don't hire entrepreneurs unless you're into it for that exact reason, where they're going to be building something with or underneath you. And even then, you're going to lose people regularly. When you hire an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
we are basically unemployable. We're using any employment that we have to learn what we want so we can go do something else. And that is what they do. I'm not trying to get a job because I know that's what would happen to somebody else. So I had to shift from this mindset of trying to bring people on my team that want to build with me. I love the people that are on my team, but I didn't hire peers. And it took me a while to figure that out because I wanted to share the cognitive burden of figuring out what do we do, how do we do it. I wanted to share that with them, and it's not. I need to give orders. I got to go figure it out, and I need to give orders, and they can execute. You're not hiring peers, and if you are, they're
You're
probably
not
going to
hiring
leave.
partners. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I think that's lost on a lot of people, myself included. It's really easy to get in the mindset of, why would someone want to do this when I don't want to do it, right? And there's just a lot of people that have, I mean, everybody's got different interests, and things that I dislike doing, they might love doing. And so, the case in point, one of my previous business partners, we didn't end up working out because we both wanted to do the same thing, right? We got in business together because we got along, we did all these things. But when it came down to it, like, we both wanted to be the front man, we both wanted to talk to investors. Nobody wanted to do the bookkeeping, nobody wanted to do the back end boring stuff. And it ended up, one of us had to do it, and that person, me, hated it. And so we ended up parting ways. And now I'm in a business partnership where my partner wants to do all the stuff that I hate, and he has no
You
desire to
almost
do the
said
stuff that
boring
I
stuff.
love.
You almost said boring stuff. That's all right. People like what they like.
It's boring to me. It's not boring to him. He loves it, right? And but that's what makes us work well together, because it's a yin to a yang, and that's what you got to find. You got to find, whether there be employees, as I hire employees, I'm looking for people that like to do the crap that I don't like to do, because they're going to be better at it than me. And I have to acknowledge that I'm not going to be the best person to do something. Like, everybody wants to think, oh, I'm the best at everything. I'm not. I'm the best at like this many things, and everything else I'm just generalist. So I got to find the other people that are good at those things that I hate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Boring things.
the boring stuff. But boring is secure. And that's a lot of people want that security. And that's where the burden hits me. So when we do our quarterly reviews, which we don't always do quarterly, by the way, sometimes they're once or twice a year. But when we do our reviews with staff, another Brandon Dawson thing I learned was PPF, personal, professional, and financial goals. And so we interview for that as well. So my whole review, the entire quarterly review for staff, is our 5 core values. Do you align with them? And if you've read EOS or Traction by Gino Wickman,
Traction.
the EOS, that's our staff evaluation system. The 5 core values: do you get the job? Do you want the job? And do you have the capacity to do it? And that's our evaluation. After the evaluation, it's, hey, tell me about your personal, professional, and financial goals. And I learned so much about my people from doing that. A lot of these people, particularly in South Africa, they want job security. They want something they know is going to be there for them in 6 months. If they want the job for 6 months, they want to know that it's going to be there for them in 6 months. They want that stability. That's huge for them. Some of them, it's not even about buying a house. It's not about building and buying and growing their stuff. They just want to not lose ground. And I'm like, wow, it's that important to them. And that's foundational for me to make sure that I serve them in the right way. And I don't talk the wrong way to them. I'm excited about uncertainty. They are not.
Yeah. But that's what makes you and I as entrepreneurs differently, because that's not a characteristic that's unique to South Africa. I mean,
No.
90% of the population just wants a steady paycheck that they can go to from 8 to 5 and go home and hang out with their kids and do stuff on the weekends. They don't want to worry about, is my distribution going to be big enough to make sure that we have enough money for the next 2 months, right? That's the kind of stuff that makes entrepreneurs thrive, right? If I have a deadline and I've got to make sure that money's coming in, like, I'm going to grind. The uncertainty makes me thrive. Other people will just shut down.
Yeah. When stuff is steady, I'm like, I guess I'll go, I don't know.
Bored.
Just bought Battlefield 6. I guess I'll go play that for a couple hours.
Yeah. Well, so I used to have a coach, Dan Martell, and he said that entrepreneurs are their biggest, worst saboteurs, because as soon as things get boring, which means stable, they go out and try to start something else, which just torpedoes the thing that's working. And so we just have this tendency to start too many things, try to run too many things at once, because we like the excitement. We like the new. We like, feeling like we're moving the ball forward, when in reality, getting into the grind of doing something is where you really build long-term wealth. And because you get to it, you make it boring, and you systematize the heck out of it until it just pumps money.
You know what my favorite thing to do with games is? Look at the achievements list, and I work on the achievements and I knock them out. Guess when a game gets boring? When it runs out of achievements. I'm like, all right, I've already done everything. This game's dumb. Next.
Yeah. Same for life, right? Same for life. So awesome. So Caleb, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody towards the end of the interview, and this will be great for you because you've got 4 kids like me. But if you could go back to when you were 18 and give yourself advice with what you know now, or go to your children when they're turn 18 and give them advice based on what you currently know at this point in time about anything, business, life, relationships, anything, what would that one piece of advice be?
Buy real estate and wait. I would give it more qualification, but just for the sake of a short quote, buy real estate and wait. Don't wait and buy real estate. Find ways to acquire assets. You're buying a retirement account. It's a savings account that's illiquid. So many different ways to see it. But put your effort into building a stability for yourself so that you have the freedom to enjoy life without as much grind. Because if at 18, you've got some savings and you're fighting to get your way into a $17,000 house that you can live in and fix up and move on to the next one and the next one and the next one, commit to whatever that lifestyle is until you have assets that give you the security you need to live an enjoyable, peaceful life.
100% true. I wish at 18 I was thinking that way versus the way I was thinking. Because by the time I had a couple kids and tried to get into it, the hurdles became much larger.
Yep. I'm willing to live in an RV for, 6 months with a wife and 4 kids. That ain't happening. So it's like, wow, it's a top of the market right now. Let me sell this house and I'll just live in a $10,000 RV for a little while. That's not something you do with a wife, much less a wife and kids.
Not unless you want to live in the RV by yourself, right?
You're going to be by yourself one way or another if you do that. Right. So yeah, I use the early years to build the foundation of stability that allows you to pivot, to have more options in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I tell my kids, they're too young to really get it, but I said, success requires a certain level, a certain amount of pain, right? And you can choose whether you stretch that pain over 30 years or you compress it down to 3 years. You get to the same point, but you gotta just figure out which of those two choices you want.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome, Caleb. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to you, learn about your consulting company or your new title company, where can they find you?
Everything ends in a .io for me, so let's keep it simple. CreativeTC.io. That's where you have the free 15-minute consults. If you have any creative questions, pop in. You can actually drop in my virtual office for free, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I have a receptionist and people on standby to do it. I care about deals being safe, legal, and ethical. Take me up on this. It is free. I promise. So CreativeTC.io. You can get my newsletter where I share my actual financials and investment opportunities. That's at calebchristopher.io. And the title company is creativetitle.io.
Got it. It's been a pleasure, Caleb. I will make sure all of that is in the show notes so anybody can easily access you. I appreciate your time on the podcast, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Brick by Brick Wealth Building Conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more people find the show. For more tips, resources, and updates on my journey, follow me on Invest with Loren. Let's keep building wealth, one brick at a time. See you next week.